The spray of the Trident still glimmered crimson when dawn pushed its first pallid light across the torn field. Rhaegar Targaryen stood amid the washed-up shields and broken polearms, his silver-gold hair slicked to his face, his breaths ragged from battle and the weight of prophecy. Rubies, those 7 remaining stones set into the gorget of his black armor, glinted like frozen drops of heart's blood. Around him the river lapped with quiet indifference at the ruin he had wrought. Robert Baratheon's great warhammer lay half-submerged at the water's edge, its antlered crown cracked, its half-splintered where Rhaegar's sword had finally found the angle between brute strength and reckless momentum. Robert himself had been borne away on a makeshift litter toward the Stormland lines, unconscious, ribs shattered, blood pooling warm through torn mail. Men cheered when the stag fell, but softly, uncertain, as if the wind might yet reverse the outcome. Rhaegar heard none of it. Victory felt hollow beside the drumbeat in his skull. The promise whispered to him in dragon dreams and the soft-spoken urgency of the woman waiting in the Tower of Joy. He scanned the riverbank for his sworn shields. Sir Arthur Dayne was near, his pale lavender cloak slashed and darkened, dawn resting across his knees while a maester stitched a gash at his shoulder. Sir Oswell went, and Sir Jonathan Derry spoke together in low tones beside the driftwood that had once been a siege ram. Yet there was an absence Rhaegar noted before he fully understood why it troubled him. Sir Barristan Selmy, ever the silent sentinel, was not at his customary post by the prince's elbow. The field groaned with the living and whispered with the dying. Small folk levies stumbled through the mist, searching for wounded kin. Farther off, fires rose from overturned wagons, sending up plumes that stung the new sky. Each pocket of smoke carried the same bitter scent. Men's dreams reduced to ash. Rhaegar sheathed Dark Sister. Hay had chosen the Valyrian Queen's blade over Blackfire for reasons he could not yet name, and approached Arthur with a step that refused to steady. "Barristan," he asked. Dayne's pale eyes, bright as morning stars, flickered beyond Rhaegar's shoulder. He pursued a retreating knot of Stormlanders. "I sent Rhaegar Redwine with him." Dayne's tone held a note too level, too deliberate, and Rhaegar knew at once that something frayed beneath the words. "Sir Barristan never chases glory," Rhaegar said. "No," Arthur allowed, gaze dropping to the river stones. "Which is why I found it odd." A horn blared thrice from the crown of a distant ridge. The Targaryen victory call. Its echo skittered across the water and died against the banks. Camp followers erupted in cheer, but the sound soon fractured into confusion. A second horn, deeper, answered from the east with the cadence of retreat. Rhaegar frowned. That blast belonged to the royal camp, where the crown's baggage train should now be establishing order. He took 2 strides before Dayne's hand, slick with poultice, caught his sleeve. "Your Highness, the wound is fresh. You need rest." "Rest will come when the realm is at peace," Rhaegar murmured. His gaze strayed toward the royal standard atop the ridge, a 3-headed dragon aflame against black silk, fluttering strangely as if the staff beneath it wobbled in unsure hands. He collected the reins of his silver courser and mounted with practiced grace, though his thighs trembled. Jonathan Derry moved to flank him, gauntleted hand tightening on his own reins, but Oswell lingered, helmet tucked beneath one arm, brow knitted in unspoken thought. "Where is Jaime?" Rhaegar asked, naming the youngest Kingsguard, though the question felt to him like testing ice upon a river whose depth he did not know. "In King's Landing," Dayne supplied, mounting with a wince. "The Queen demanded her son's sword. Lord Tywin remains behind the city walls, claiming neutrality." He spat the last word like spoiled wine. Rhaegar nodded, face unreadable. Every raven he sent had returned bearing ink enough to drown any lingering trust he might have placed in his erstwhile hand. But politics could wait. The field still needed binding, the realm reassurance. He urged his mount toward the crest. The climb revealed a mosaic of carnage. Trampled poppies releasing their last red onto muddied ground. Shattered banners half-buried beneath the waterlogged dead. The glint of broken steel amid reeds. A hush clung to the aftermath like morning frost. He remembered singing once among these rushes, soft chords on a silver harp, while the summer air smelled of mint and river blossom. Now the only music was the river's sluggish murmur around abandoned pikes. At the ridge he expected to see Grand Maester Picel coordinating triage, Ser Barristan directing prisoners, his own standard the anchor of order. Instead, a tight knot of gold-armored men, loyal retainers from the Crown lands, stood ringed around the standard, weapons half drawn. Across from them, cloaked in white but crusted brown with gore, Barristan Selmy held his longsword point downward, hands upon pommel, as though presenting steel for judgment. Beside him, Rhaegar Redwine knelt, wrists bound with torn linen. "Hold," Rhaegar called, but his voice cracked, issuing hoarse from a throat raw with dust. He coughed, tasted iron, and tried again. What treachery is this? The circle parted, revealing Ser Barristan's eyes, gray as overcast seas, fixed upon the prince. With them came a silence weighted with meaning too dense to parse at a glance. "My prince," Barristan said, voice solemn. "This man would have delivered your head to Robert's bannermen had we not intercepted him." Rhaegar's gaze snapped to Redwine. Rhaegar was young, near of an age with Rhaegar himself, earnest, courageous, yet too enamored of songs that lauded tragic bravery. Tho's lip was split. Blood trickled down his chin as he met Rhaegar's eyes with stark remorse. "My mother lay dying in the Stormlands keep they put to the torch," Rhaegar rasped. "Robert swore safe passage to her if I—" "Enough," Barristan said, stern yet gentle. "Treasons born of grief are still treason." Wind rattled the standard. The fabric cracked like a whip overhead, startling several sworn men. Rhaegar dismounted, boots sliding in loose shale. "Untie him, my prince," the captain of guard protested. "Untie him," Rhaegar repeated, softer but irrefutable. When the cords fell, Rhaegar sagged. Rhaegar reached out, steadying him by the elbow. "Your mother would not want your honor stained by such a bargain," he said. The words surprised him. They sounded like something a father might say, not a war leader. Rhaegar wept, shoulders shaking. Rhaegar gestured to the maester waiting by a supply cart. "Dowie, tend him, and afterward he will keep vigil beside me. There is more valor in living with your oaths than dying for broken promises." "Nen Tran," Barristan watched, impassive, then knelt on one knee. "Your grace," he faltered, correcting himself. "My prince, forgive me the harsh measures. The lines blur in battle's fog." Rhaegar's hand hovered over the older knight's pauldron before settling with quiet affirmation. "Rise, Ser Barristan Teti. You have ever been my shield. I will not doubt you for doing what you deemed necessary." Yet beneath the calm, a splinter worked deeper. If Barristan could suspect betrayal in Rhaegar, what seeds of doubt might already be sprouting among men less tested? The thought frayed when a rider crested the opposite slope at full gallop. Standard bearer of House Arryn, cloak streaming. "The Eyrie banners advance!" cried the outrider, reining to a jarring halt. "Lord John Arryn sends word. Forces loyal to him close from the north bank. He will parley under quartered banners if invited." Rhaegar's mind flicked to the greater game board. Arryn had broken with the crown after Lyanna's abduction, yet remained the realm's moral compass in many eyes. A parley might forestall further bloodshed, or become a trap. Still, Rhaegar's victory over Robert gave him leverage. He signaled assent, raised the green of truce. "We meet at midday on the stone bridge." The messenger sped off as swiftly as he had come. Rhaegar exhaled, feeling fatigue seep like cold into his bones. 5 hours of steel and chaos had aged him 5 years. He turned toward the river again, and for an instant the battlefield fell away. He saw instead the crypts of Winterfell, Lyanna's tomb, sealed in stone yet never built, and heard her laughter echoing down gypsy lanes when first she named him the Knight of the Laughing Tree. He saw his own children, not yet conceived, dancing beneath red leaves in the palace garden of dreams. All futures balanced on moments like this, fragile as frost petals. A distant shout broke the reverie, scouts returning with wounded from the river's eastern bend. Rhaegar strode down the ridge to meet them. Arthur Dayne joined him, bandage bright against tanned skin. "Your sword hand?" Rhaegar asked, concerned. "It still remembers dawn," Arthur answered with thin humor. "Though I fear my shoulder will protest when dusk demands another song." Rhaegar smiled despite himself. They passed among clustered tents where healers worked tirelessly. Each muffled groan, each whispering plea for the mother's mercy, etched itself upon his conscience. He would carry them all, he knew, into whatever dawn next came for Westeros. They reached a makeshift command pavilion where maps lay weighted by daggers. Ravens rustled in wicker cages, restless with the scent of blood. Oswell went awaited, helm off, hair plastered dark to his brow. "Sirs," he greeted, nodding toward a squire trimming a quill. "Status?" Dane asked. "Stormland forces scatter. Lord Connington pursues stragglers westward, yet Sir Lyn Corbray holds a pocket of 500 across the ford." Went pointed to a raid jink cluster. "He refuses surrender, swearing upon Robert's honor that reinforcements will come." Dane snorted. "Robert's honor bleeds upon the bank. Corbray will find no salvation." "Perhaps," Went said. "Yet men fight fiercer for lost causes than for just ones." Rhaegar traced a gloved finger across the map. "Offer them terms, lay down arms, retain lands, swear fealty anew. Else they may depart to the Vale unmolested." He could ill afford butchery that would sour whichever maesters eventually pen the histories. Went bowed. "Ate once, my prince." He hesitated. "A word in private when you might." Rhaegar read something flittering in the knight's eyes. A shadow of caution, yet nodded, trusting time would soon permit. Hours unspooled, measured in the rustle of parchment and the clatter of stretchers. The battlefield born at daybreak slowly settled into the uneasy stillness of occupation. Crows gathered in the limbs of ash trees lining the ford, their calls a dirge for the fallen. Mid-morning sun gathered heat upon the prince's black steel, and Rhaegar doffed his helm, running fingers through sweat-damp hair. When the sun crowned its arc, he rode to the stone bridge beneath banners, displaying quartered dragon and falcon. Jon Arryn approached from the northern bank, flanked by knights bearing bleeding wounds bandaged pale. Between them, silence reigned louder than any horn. Rhaegar advanced alone, save for Barristan 5 paces behind, and Arthur Dane to his right, following proper ritual for parley. Arryn's eyes were rimmed red, his once pristine breastplate dented from some earlier melee. Yet dignity clung to him like the mountain snows of his homeland. "Prince Rhaegar," he greeted, voice thick with exhaustion. "The gods saw fit to spare your life, and endanger the realm further thereby." Rhaegar inclined his head. "Lord Arryn, we are all endangered so long as we permit blood to answer blood. Your foster son lives, though grievously wounded. I would see him tended by the best leeches the Citadel may send." That much at least was truth. Arryn's lined face softened, though sorrow quickly overlaid relief. "Your mercy honors you." He paused. "Yet I must ask, what now? Robert's cause is not his alone. Scores of houses have bent knees to the stag." Rhaegar measured his reply. This was the moment Lyanna's name might sunder or sow. But prophecy, like wildfire, required careful containment. The realm needs healing. Let houses speak in council, not in clash of iron. I will call a great council at Harrenhal within a moon's turn. All lords may voice grievances. In return, I ask only an end to hostilities until verdict." Arryn considered while gulls circled overhead. "And Lyanna Stark?" Rhaegar's throat tightened. "She remains under my protection, well kept, of her own will. She will be presented before the council to speak truth unmarred by rumor." The words felt fragile, yet he believed them. Lyanna's fierce spirit would not be caged. Arryn's shoulders sagged, as if he carried a weight heavier even than his plate. "Very well," he said. "I will abide by this peace until council, but know that if the maiden is harmed, she will not be," Rhaegar vowed. The two men clasped forearms. Formalities concluded, each retreated to his lines. The bridge emptied but for their echoes. As Rhaegar rode back, the first prickling sensation crawled beneath his skin. A hush too deep. An absence where murmurs should dwell. He scanned his own men. Their faces were solemn, but somewhere behind solemnity lurked calculation. He caught Barristan's eye. The knight's gaze slid away, just briefly. Arthur Dane studied the river, as though seeking omens in ripples. Even whence affable grin was drawn taut. The Kingsguard, and by extension his trust, had become a shroud he could not pierce. Near dusk, when finally requested his private audience, they withdrew to a lonely tent at the river's bend where the roar of distant campfires smothered eavesdroppers. Lantern light painted Oswell's features in amber relief. "My prince," Went began, clearing his throat. "We served your father with unquestioned loyalty. Yet you must know, the dragons of yore devour themselves when left unchecked." Rhaegar stiffened. "Speak plainly." Barristan was approached by Lord Mouton before the charge, Went said. Promises were whispered. Clemency for all if Robert prevailed. Honors restored under a new rule. Barristan refused, but others listened. Some within our own white cloaks. Nine. Names, Rhaegar commanded, voice hushed. Oswell swallowed. "I only know there are letters, hidden among personal effects. Dane pursues them now. If betrayed, he means to expose the guilty before they act." Rhaegar's pulse thudded. "Why tell me now?" "Because I fear even the sword of the morning cannot halt a betrayal once set aflame," Wen replied. "You must guard yourself, trust few." A horn sounded outside. Single, short, sharp. Not a signal he recognized. Went leapt toward the flap, but shadow parted it first. Barristan Selmy stepped into the lantern glow, sword unsheathed, blade slick with oil. "My prince," Barristan said, helm under arm, snow of his cloak trailing dust. "You are summoned to the command fire. Dane requires your counsel." Rhaegar stood, hand resting on Dark Sister's hilt. "On what matter?" "Prisoners," Barristan answered. Oswell Went's gaze flicked to Rhaegar, silent plea evident. The tent wall seemed to draw closer, the air to grow tight. Yet Rhaegar nodded, brushing past Barristan. Knight and prince emerged into twilight. So deep the river looked like a ribbon of molten iron. As they walked, Barristan spoke low. "Oswell is troubled, my prince. He fears shadows where none fall." "Does he?" Rhaegar asked. Barristan slowed. "You doubt my word." "I doubt everything," Rhaegar whispered. They reached the central fire where Dane waited, cloak cast aside, tunic clinging to his bandaged torso. Jonathan Derry stood opposite him. Between them lay a leather satchel. Dane opened it. Parchment fluttered like trapped moths. "Read," he said to Rhaegar. The prince knelt, drawing forth a letter bearing the seal of House Tyrell. Its words promised wealth, titles, even Mace Tyrell's own daughter in marriage. To any Kingsguard who delivered Rhaegar alive to Highgarden, should Robert fall. Another letter bore the Greyjoy Kraken, pledging ships and sanctuary on Pike. And one more, heart-stopping in its familiarity, carried the Lion of Lannister, offering Casterly Rock's treasury for the prince's head on a pike. Each letter concluded with a list of names scribbled in another hand. Sir Gerald Hightower, Sir Barristan Selmy, Sir Oswell Went. Dane's voice cut the hush. Found in Gerald's chest. The white bull fell at dusk, shot by a crossbow bolt. Grief tremored in his timbre. Rhaegar lifted his gaze. Barristan's jaw clenched, fists at his sides. "I never saw these," he swore. Derry added, "There are more, some bearing the sigils of houses already sworn to us. The rot spreads." Rhaegar's breath steamed in cooling air. The Kingsguard, a shield of 7, now cracked beyond mending. Gerald dead, Hightower's honor stained, letters poisoning trust. He looked around the fire. 5 white cloaks, each seeming to flutter like a hangman's claw. In that fragile silence, steel sang. Derry's sword cleared scabbard even as Barristan's longsword swept low in a defensive arc. Blade met blade with a clang that sent sparks cascading. Dane, swift as dawn, pivoted to guard Rhaegar, dawn gleaming pale comet fire. But Derry was not striking at Barristan. His lunge carried through, sidestepping, toward Rhaegar. "For the realm," he cried, eyes wild with fear or faith. His point streaked for the prince's breastplate. Barristan's crossbow cut intercepted, parrying Derry's blade a hair's width from Rhaegar's heart. Dane followed, reversing Dawn in a backhanded slice that slashed Derry's gauntlet. Fingers severed in a spray of red against white cloak. Derry gasped, but rage propelled him forward. His good hand darted for a dagger at his belt. Rhaegar, moving on instinct honed in combat, slammed Dark Sister's pommel into Derry's temple. Bone cracked. The Kingsguard staggered, eyes rolling, and collapsed at the prince's feet. Silence returned, louder than before. Flames popped in the pit. Beyond, camp murmurs continued. Oblivious, only those gathered here witnessed the shattering of oaths. Barristan sheathed, breathing hard. "He was my brother," he whispered. Dane held Dawn Anglivo, its mirror-bright steel reflecting the fire. He chose treason, at the moment of reckoning. Rhaegar knelt beside Derry, feeling for pulse. A faint flutter persisted. "He lives," he said, though he scarcely knew whether relief or sorrow threaded the words. "Bind him." Dane obeyed, expression carved from sorrow. Barristan watched, shoulders slumping as though the entire realm weighed upon them. Rhaegar rose. Smoke carried upward, vanishing into a star-freckled sky emerging above. He looked to his sworn shields, what remained of their unit, and knew that the danger stood not upon distant horizons, but at his very side. "From this night," he said, voice low yet carrying, "the Kingsguard will stand 2 men to each watch, sworn to keep an eye upon the other as surely as upon me. Letters of pardon for any confessed treachery will be honored, if confession is made before the morrow's dawn. After that, I will show no mercy." Dane gave a slight nod. Barristan's eyes shone with mingled pride and pain. Oswell Went, who had approached during the melee, knelt without word, offering his sword. Rhaegar accepted only the hilt's cold certainty. The river whispered unseen truths. The wind carried rumors of wings stirring far to the south, at a lonely tower where Lyanna waited, and secrets quickened like the beat of a child's heart. Night deepened, and with it, the first embers of betrayal glowed beneath the white of Kingsguard cloaks, promising a conflagration yet to come. Ka-ho, Kini. Rain found the Trident camp before dawn. A thin, needling drizzle that hissed against dying embers, and soaked the linen roof of Rhaegar's command tent, until droplets slipped in steady cadence upon the painted map table. Every tap echoed the relentless thought circling his skull. A Kingsguard blade had turned on him. The white cloak was no longer an unassailable shield. It hid uncertain hearts. He rose, shrugging off the quilted cloak that failed to keep cold from his bones, and pushed through the canvas flap into mist. Torches guttered along the aisle between tents, their light reduced to blurred halos in moisture-heavy air. Sentinels snapped to attention when he passed, yet their salutes felt brittle. The stiffness of men afraid that loyalty might be mistaken for treachery in another's eye. At the healer's pavilion, Jonathan Derry lay unconscious upon a cot, hands bound with rope that rubbed raw against skin already fever-hot. The maester checked his pupils, muttering of swelling in the skull. If Derry survived, he would wake to a cloister cell or the block, unless Rhaegar could salvage him as witness, testimony against deeper conspirators. Mercy and necessity waged their silent duel inside the prince, while he watched the maester pack ice against the wounded knight's brow. Mercy found no easy footing. Barristan Selmy arrived, helm beneath arm, rain tracing silver through his pale hair. "Arthur holds the first watch," he said softly, eyes never straying from Derry's slack face. "Oswell patrols the baggage train. I relieve Dane at sunrise." "You think Arthur is safe?" Rhaegar asked. Barristan hesitated. "If Dane turns traitor, none of us deserve the cloak." Rhaegar exhaled, a fogging plume. Betrayal rarely rides alone. It spreads like cracks in ice, hairline at first invisible until weight presses. He glanced at Barristan. "Once, I believe 7 sworn brothers could never fracture." Barristan's gaze was distant, fixed someplace past the tent wall, perhaps upon memories of tournament glory, songs of chivalry sung by sweet-voiced girls who never saw the mud matted in a dying man's beard. "The code is iron," he murmured. "But iron too can snap if enough strain is laid upon it." He turned, saluted, and vanished into wet fog. Rhaegar lingered beside Derry's cot until the night's harsh breaths found a rhythmic rasp that suggested his struggle with the stranger might last past dawn. Then the prince returned to his own quarters, but sleep refused him. Instead, he dictated letters by flickering lamp to Lyanna at the Tower of Joy, assuring her of his victory yet warning of gathering storms. To Lord Connington, commanding consolidation of prisoners. To the High Septon, requesting holy witnesses for the coming Great Council. And to his wife, Elia, the hardest to compose, promising safe return and hinting, without confession, that the realm's fate now hung on secrets he had locked away. When quills finally stilled, outside birds greeted dawn with tentative calls, masked by drizzle. Rhaegar donned a plain gray cloak, forgoing the black dragon sigil. No need to parade triumph over men still nursing wounds, and slipped from camp with only his squire, young Miles Mooton, to shoulder his harp case. He walked rather than rode, seeking clarity in each footfall along the tree-lined bank. The river had begun to coax bloated corpses from its sandbars. Soldiers labored to drag bodies ashore for pyres or burial pits. Rhaegar joined them, lifting a Stormlander by the shoulders while two others took his legs. The dead man's helm, split by a sword stroke that still pinked the visor slit, gaped like a silent rebuke. The prince helped lay him on a canvas sheet. Then another corpse, and a third. By the time his squire found him, Rhaegar's gloves were slick, sleeves streaked brown. "Your Grace, the Arryn envoys await final treaty parchment," Miles said timidly. Rhaegar straightened. "Tell them midday, and fetch me Sir Barristan." The boy fled. Rhaegar washed gloved hands in frigid shallows, river water swirling rust where blood dissolved. His reflection wavered, a pale lord haunted by more than sleeplessness. When he turned to climb the bank, Sir Barristan was already there. "Your cloak is gray today," Barristan noted, voice carefully neutral. "A prince can mourn," Rhaegar said. "Victory bought in brothers' blood is dear coin." The older knight nodded. "Arryn's scribes wait at the ridge. Lord Jon insists upon witnessing your seal." "Walk with me then." They followed a muddy path past rows of sodden tents toward the command ridge. Squires hauled wagons of captured weapons. Ravens picked at entrails and wheel ruts. A breeze carried wood smoke, and the faint, honey-sweet scent of burning flesh. Rhaegar's stomach twisted, hunger and nausea in equal shares. At the Arryn pavilion parchment awaited, splayed upon a board weighted by river stones. Jon Arryn stood with Septon and Maester on either flank, each bearing witness. Rhaegar read the treaty's final lines, a cessation of arms between banners of House Arryn and those loyal to Prince Rhaegar Targaryen, until such time as a great council shall by majority voice determine the fate of Lyanna Stark, Robert Baratheon, and the grievances arrayed. It was, he knew, an armistice stitched with threads of hope rather than iron, but a thin thread held better than none. Wax was poured. Rhaegar pressed his three-headed dragon seal, then Arryn his crescent moon. The Septon intoned a benediction for peace. Rhaegar bowed his head, lips silently shaping a prayer older than the seven, whispered in High Valyrian, "Let the blood of dragons cool before it scalds the world." He doubted any god still listened. When formalities ended, Arryn lingered. "Stormborn rumors swirl," he said quietly. "Some claim your own protectors turned blades upon you." "Rumor exaggerates," Rhaegar answered, though not untrue. Only one blade had turned. Yet I will not hide our trials. The Kingsguard, like all men, are susceptible to doubt. I address it. Arryn's gaze weighed him. Should doubt fracture that order, the realm will look to you more keenly for guidance. The memory of your father's reign remains raw. Rhaegar inclined his head, acknowledging warning and truth. Which is why I will soon ride for King's Landing to bring the crown's voice into accord with peace. I would have you accompany me. Nigazatori. Arryn's brows rose. Escort a Targaryen prince through the gates of the gods? The small folk might brand me turncloak. They will brand you savior if bloodshed ceases, Rhaegar countered. Let our arrival in the capital exemplify unity rather than conquest. Arryn studied the treaty parchment, then folded it carefully. My heart leans to peace, he said at last. Yet my duty leans to Robert. He yet lives. Which is why I did not bid you bend the knee, Rhaegar answered. I bid you witness truth upon the Iron Throne, that when council meets, no man may claim I conjured lies in secret chambers. Aaron's sigh steamed in chill air. Very well. I will ride at your flank as watcher, if not ally. It was enough. Rhaegar returned to camp to prepare the royal column. Rain lessened to mist by midday. Arthur Dayne led vanguard scouts while Barristan commanded rear guard. A company of Crownland spears marched center, flanked by Aaron's falcons under banner of truce. Sir Oswell rode beside Rhaegar, face pale, his wounded honor bandaged with duty. Behind them, wagons carried casualties, and the chained but living Jonathor Derry Dot. Crossing the Trident felt like re-entering the world after a sojourn beyond life. Hills unfolded gentle and green, dotted with redwood groves. At each village farmers peered from thatched doorways. Some spat and made the sign of the Mother's Mark. Others knelt in the mud at the sight of Targaryen banners. Loyalty, fear, and confusion braided into one ragged cord. 3 days eastward brought them to Maidenpool's scarred walls. Lord Moodin, whose whispered treachery had seeded doubt, knelt before Rhaegar in the outer ward, offering keys on a silk pillow. His eyes were ringed in shadow, as though he had slept not at all since news of Robert's downfall reached him. My faith faltered when the dragon's flame seemed guttered, he confessed. Nay, my life proved steadier than my courage. Rhaegar accepted the keys but immediately returned them. Guard your people, Lord Moodin? Their suffering weighs heavier upon my conscience than any lapse of your tongue. He turned to Barristan. You question Moodin's loyalty? Barristan's mouth tightened. His envoys visited our camp before the battle, he admitted. They gauged the wind's turn. I made note. And yet you withheld judgment, Rhaegar said. Hold that instinct. We may need it to tell deserter from merely disheartened. They lodged that night in the Maidenpool keep. Rain drummed the slate roofs relentlessly, but within the great hall fires blazed. Rhaegar's harp found his hands as naturally as flowing water finds riverbed. He played a low, pensive melody, fingers coaxing sorrow and solace through catgut strings. The music stilled conversations, and even clattering plates hushed. Lords and soldiers alike sat transfixed, each hearing some private lyric hidden in wordless chords. When the final note faded, the hall held breath before applause dared break silence. Arthur Dayne approached, bearing fresh bandages on his shoulder. That song has no title, he said. It has many, Rhaegar replied. One for every heart that listens. Mine calls it the price of rubies. Dayne's gaze flicked to the 7 rubies still set in the black steel of Rhaegar's gorget. You keep them as a reminder? Yes, witness, Rhaegar said. Each stone a bead upon the prayer that I do not squander lives bought at the Trident. Later, in a guest chamber smelling of lavender and damp stone, Rhaegar unrolled parchment handed to him by an Arryn courier. Maester Coleman's report from Storm's End. Robert stirred but had not regained full senses. Lord Stannis Baratheon assumed defense of the castle. Rumor claimed he blames himself for his brother's fall, rationing every crumb, preparing for siege. Rhaegar traced the words, feeling compassion coil with dread. Robert's recovery would resurrect the war phoenix-like, unless politics smothered sparks first. A second raven carried darker tidings from King's Landing. Varys the Spider wrote in cipher that the Queen Rhaella had retreated to Dragonstone with young viseries. King Aerys had grown more volatile, ordering wildfire caches placed beneath the city's avenues. Tywin Lannister massed an army at the Gold Road, yet professed neutrality. Jaime Lannister still served in the Red Keep, though rumors said the king trusted him no more than any other breathing soul. Rhaegar crushed the parchment, resisting urge to light it aflame. He knew his father's fear well. It swallowed reason, leaving only embers of paranoia. Wildfire in the streets. If Tywin marched under pretense of defense, Aerys might ignite the capital rather than yield. The Trident's cost would pale beside King's Landing's doom. Sleep visited in snatches, haunted by dreams. Lyanna calling through tower windows barred with white cloaks. Elias' voice drowned beneath wildfire roar. A babe with mismatched eyes. One violet, one gray crying while the Iron Throne melted under him. At dawn, the column pressed south onto the King's Road. Barristan reported no further conspiratorial letters found, though Gerald Hightower's death remained unsolved. No faction claimed credit. Rhaegar suspected the arrow loosed from chaos rather than plot, yet chaos served conspirators as handily as designed. Mid-journey, a courier from the Reach rode hard under groaning sky. Lord Mace Tyrell summons a host to defend King's Landing on orders from Queen Rhaella. Another raven arrived hours later, contradiction barbed in ink. Lord Paxter Redwine sailed for Dragonstone, citing rumors of a queen in peril. Which queen? Rhaegar wondered. Realm politics tangled like ivy across a crumbling wall. Tug one vine and stones might tumble. On the sixth day, the towers of the capital appeared, distant as mirages. Blackened clouds brewed to the west, foretelling storm. Rhaegar ordered camp outside the city walls until formal welcome issued. No messenger came. Instead, smoke pillars rose from Flea Bottom, where fires burned uncontrolled. The next morning, horns blared atop the Gate of the Gods, commanding entry under truce of the king. Rhaegar donned his armor, obsidian plate with the 7 rubies that still gleamed, and rode with a white cloak, honor guard of 4 who remained. Barristan, Dane went, and the maimed, yet standing Gerald Squire. Now Sir Glendon Flowers, elevated in the chaos. Inside the gate, gaunt small folk pressed against cordons, eyes wide with hope or terror. Some reached out fingertips to brush the hem of Rhaegar's cloak. Others cursed or spat until guards shoved them back. Soot stained the cobbles. Harrowed eyes peered from broken doorways, echoing fear that wildfire rumors might prove real. They approached the Red Keep as dusk bled scarlet across sky. Torches dotted ramparts, blowing sideways in storm gusts. The drawbridge remained raised. A lone figure in golden armor stood atop battlements. Jaime Lannister, white cloak whipping, helm tucked beneath one elbow. Prince Rhaegar. His voice rang, amplified by courtyard acoustics. Enter at your peril. His Grace the King sees dragons in every shadow, and burns them by candlelight. Rhaegar rhined in Shadowfax, heart thudding. Tell my father it is his son. Come to counsel peace. Jaime's laugh carried brittle edge. He knows, yet he uncages the pyromancers still. I can smell wildfire through the mortar. Arthur Dayne spurred forward. Open, or be counted traitor. I am sworn to protect the king, Jaime replied. But I will not watch a city die in green flame. Ride away. Return when tempers cool. Or better, counsel at Dragonstone. The Queen Mother awaits you. Barristan muttered an oath. Rhaegar raised a hand. Rain began, fat drops that hammered helm crests. Sir Jaime, you once pledged me your sword on the tourney field at Storm's End. I ask that oath now. Stand between my father and any thought of burning his realm. Keep him safe until I may speak with him. No. Lightning forked distant hills, silhouette frozen white behind crenellations. Jaime inclined his head, golden hair plastered by rain. I will try, he said. Yet wildfire obeys no sword. With that, the Kingslayer turned, vanishing behind Merlin's. The portcullis remained closed. Rhaegar's host withdrew to the Dragon Gate, occupying barracks long deserted for war. Storm winds howled. Thunder boomed. Inside a map room repurposed from smithy, the prince convened council. Jon Arryn, recently arrived under guard, sat opposite Lord Mooton, while Barristan and Dane flanked Rhaegar. Oswell Went hovered near door, eyes flicking to shadows. We must split our course, Rhaegar announced. If the king refuses parley, we cannot force entry without risking the very fire we fear. I will sail to Dragonstone, secure the Queen and Viserys, then return with the royal fleet to demonstrate unified crown authority. And King's Landing? Arryn asked. Surrounded, Dane supplied. My scouts confirm Tyrell Vanguard will reach the Crownlands within 10 days. Lannisters array on the Gold Road. Should they clash outside the walls, wildfire might ignite as spark to tinder. No. Rhaegar studied candle flames guttering on the table. Arthur, you remain. Muster city watch. Seal Pyromancer's vaults if possible. Discreetly, Barristan will accompany me to Dragonstone. His presence may reassure Queen Rhaella. Oswell went cleared throat. And I? Rhaegar met Went's uncertain eyes. Guard Jonathar. His testimony may yet prove vital. Rain hammered roof like war drums as plans crystallized. Before dawn, Rhaegar's party slipped to the royal docks. Galleys bearing dragonhead prows waited, unmanned but serviceable. As lines were cast off, Barristan asked, "Why bring only a handful?" Dragonstone might bristle with fear. "Speed," Rhaegar said, gripping railing. "A small flame outtraces wildfire when guided by wind." They sailed under roiling gray heavens, Blackwater Bay churning whitecaps. Lightning speared waves, thunder roared over flapping sails. Yet by midday of the second day, the volcanic peak of Dragonstone stabbed cloudbank. Smoke curled from its forged chimneys, a promise of hearth or warning beacon. The harbor guard signaled them in. On the quay, Queen Rhaella awaited, cloaked in black-trimmed crimson, visories clinging wide-eyed at her side. Behind her stood Lord Estermont and Lady Cassana Baratheon, hostages of courtesy. Rhaella's face, lined yet dignified, softened as Rhaegar disembarked. "My son," she breathed, pulling him into embrace. The scent of smoke weighed even here. He could not tell if it came from forge or fear. Viserys stared at his older brother's armor with mingled awe and jealousy. In the audience hall, tapestries flapped under storm-force drafts. Rhaella listened, while Rhaegar recounted Trident victory, Robert's wounding, council proposal, and King's Landing's tinderbox derrière. Her eyes glistened at mention of Lyanna. Yet she asked no accusatory question. Years of suffering had forged her into tempered steel that bent before snapping. Instead, she placed hands upon Rhaegar's. "Aerys' mind wanders labyrinth where no lantern burns. I fear only ash will lead him out." Rhaegar bowed head. "I pray to light lanterns before the labyrinth collapses. But if fire threatens innocence, I will quench it by any means." Damn. That night, he stood upon Dragonstone's battlements, watching St. Elmo's fire dance blue along mastheads in the harbor. Barristan joined him, salt rain needling cloak. "Prince," the knight said, "I spoke with the Queen's handmaidens. They claim Tyrell ships chase rumors of Viserys' capture, stirred by Varys' whispers." Rhaegar's jaw set. "Then Varys plays his own board, as ever. We must stay ahead." Distant thunder boomed. He turned to Barristan. "Tell the dockmaster to prepare the Black Dread. We sail on dawn tide, rain or calm." "Yes? And the Queen?" "She remains. Dragonstone's walls are older than any wildfire vault, safer than the capital until we tame my father's fears." That dawn broke in blood-red sky, omen or promise. The voyage back proved mercifully calm, as though storms themselves paused to watch history pivot. Yet as King's Landing harbor lanterns dipped in twilight, smoke curled above Magister's Hill, wildfire green, faint but visible even against dying sun. Rhaegar's fleet anchored under shadow of the Red Keep. Shouts echoed from the docks. Small folk clustered in confusion. Barristan led detachments to secure storerooms. Rhaegar strode streets where alchemists fled burning workshops, faces blistered. Casks of wildfire rolled uncontrolled, slick emerald trails igniting cobbles. From the Gate of the Gods, a white-cloaked figure sprang onto parapet, waving arms. Jaime Lannister's voice carried ragged. "The pyromancers have lost control. Flee!" Rhaegar's heart hammered. Flames licked alleyways, like living things. He spurred toward the Red Keep. 3 spearmen at heel. Barristan diverted to evacuate market squares. Ash fell like sick snow. Inside the keep's courtyard, Aerys Targaryen stood upon the iron ramp of the Traitor's Walk. Eyes gleaming wild, robe scorched. A line of alchemists knelt behind, bound, their mouths sewn shut. A brazier of wildfire flickered at his feet. Traitors all. Aerys shrieked when he saw Rhaegar. "They sought my throne, but fire is my champion." "Father!" Rhaegar shouted above roar. "The city burns." "Let it." The king kicked the brazier. Green fire spilled across stone. racing toward casks stacked for defense. Jaime was there suddenly, sword drawn, batting aside a pyromancer who lunged at him with torch. Rhaegar lunged up the ramp, boots skidding on slick flagstone. Arthur Dayne, he must have raced from gates, appeared behind, dawn flashing. Rhaegar reached his father's cookfires of wildfire whooshed higher. He seized Aerys's wrists, forcing them away from Flint's striker clutched like scepter. "Release me," Aerys hissed. "You would deny me my justice. The realm is not tinder for vengeance." Rhaegar roared. Aerys's nails dug into his son's gauntlets. They cheered when the wolf howled, when the stag rebelled. Burn them all. In that instant, Jaime moved. Perhaps prophecy in motion. Perhaps impulse. His golden sword pierced Aerys between ribs, sliding in near silent. The king's eyes widened, mouth forming no sound but exhale of disbelief. Blood bubbled. Jaime withdrew and struck again, severing spine. Aerys crumpled against Rhaegar, crown clattering. Silence swallowed courtyard except crackle of wildfire and distant screams. Rhaegar lowered his father gently, staring at Jaime, who knelt and offered sword hilt forward, expression blank. "I have committed regicide," he said. "Do what honor demands." Rhaegar's heart pounded. Barristan arrived, eyes taking in scene, then closing in grief. Dayne breathed heavy, blood splatter across cheek. Rhaegar glanced at the wildfire creeping nearer casks. No time for judgment. He picked up the fallen crown. Spires twisted, rubies missing, and placed it on the stones beside his father's body. "There is no honor amid ashes," he said. "Help me save the city. We will answer for choices when dawn breaks and the living still outnumber the dead." Jaime rose. Together with Dayne and Barristan, they kicked the brazier upright, doused stray puddles with sand and woolen capes. Courtiers spilled from halls in panic. Some stared at their dead king. Others fled. Command poured from Rhaegar's throat. Confiscate wildfire casks, seal vaults, escort pyromancers to dungeons, dispatch criers promising pardon to any who aid fire brigade. Lords Tyrell and Lannister, on approach, were to be met under banners of mourning. There would be no siege, only negotiation. Hours bled into black night streaked by green flares as casks exploded in alleys, but damage was contained. By sunrise, smoke clung low, but the city stood. Rhaegar convened small council, patched together from survivors. Jon Arryn, newly entered, Grand Master Pycelle, Varys emerging as if from shadow. Barristan, Jaime, Dayne, Mouton. Upon trestle table lay Aerys's crown. Silence reigned until Pycelle cleared throat. "The realm must have a king." Rhaegar stared at twisted metal. "Not before a council," he said. "Not until lords from all 7 kingdoms gather. Let them judge my father's reign, my own deeds, Robert's grievance, Lyanna's voice. Mehwar. And if council chooses Robert?" Arryn asked. A hush followed, deeper than before. Finally Rhaegar spoke. "Then I will kneel, and hope prophecy erred." Barristan's hand closed on his shoulder. Jaime looked away, perhaps overwhelmed by the mercy he had not expected. Dayne sheathed dawn, safe for now. Outside, bells tolled for King Aerys. Inside, the future waited. Heart of wildfire beating behind iron doors, yet to decide if it would incinerate hopes, or forge them into something new. Kay. The ripples of dawn shimmered across Blackwater Bay like spilled quicksilver when Rhaegar stepped onto the terrace of faces. Marble busts of forgotten conquerors stared into hazy light, their empty eyes seeming to weigh the man who had just watched the last Dragonkin die beneath his hands. Seabirds wheeled above the broken towers, and the sea wind carried brine that burned in his lungs. But he welcomed the sting. It proved he was still alive, still unburned, still unbowed. Night had not cleansed King's Landing. Green scars of wildfire crawled on scorched walls, and in places alleys exhaled sweet, corpse-tainted smoke. Yet the city stood. So did he. Below, on the outer ward, Arthur Dayne directed a bucket line, while Jaime Lannister oversaw pyromancers emptying the last kegs of volatile green sludge into the river. Each cask hissed like a dying serpent. Each hiss nudged memory of Eris's final shriek deeper into Rhaegar's marrow. The Iron Throne waited somewhere behind him, sharp and mute. But he lingered here, where morning salt might scour the stink of ash from his soul. Footsteps approached. Barristan Selmy strode from the grand stair, still armored but helmless, white cloak smeared with soot yet strikingly clean around the sigilless clasp. Badai. He bowed. Rhaegar gestured him nearer. No ceremony now between savior brethren. Both men braced forearms instead of bending knee. Tywin's outriders reached the King's Gate at dawn, Barristan reported. He sends word of condolence and pledges aid in restoring order, asking guidance. The knight's gray eyes probed for reaction. Rhaegar almost smiled. Guidance, he repeated. The Lion seeks permission to prowl after the lambs have scattered. I can place the Lannister hosts south of the city, Barristan offered. Beyond the storm drains, keep them distant until council assembles. Rhaegar shook his head. Let them camp in the fields outside the Gold Gate. Their coin will feed our markets, and Tywin will wear genial masks so long as his purse bleeds into the city. He turned to the horizon, where Dragonstow's silhouette lay faint beyond morning haze. Prepare a rider. Summon my mother. The council cannot convene without the Dowager Queen's blessing, and she must look upon the throne before decisions are forged. Your mother will come, Barristan said, shifting weight. But Prince Viserys, he grows petulant, demanding his due birthright. He is a child. Rhaegar's words came sharper than intended. Yet, children grow. We will give Viserys purpose, pages to turn, masters to test his mind. Not the weight of kingdoms. Now, will the lords agree? Barristan asked. They will not be offered a choice. Rhaegar exhaled. But first, bury my father. And with him, house every rumor that his madness passed through my blood. 2 days later, Blackfire Harbor blazed with torches and golden lanterns as Aerys II Targaryen's funeral barge slipped into black water. Green wildfire had been forbidden. Only clean oils burned in braziers at prow and stern. Rhaegar stood on the stone quay, in plain umber wool, the crown left in a vault. Beside him, Elia Martell clutched a shawl, dyed Martell red, dark eyes shimmering with unshed tears. Her slender hand trembled when Rhaegar offered his own, but she accepted. Surrounding them, knots of highborn and small folk watched in reverent hush. Lannister captains in polished plate, Tyrell knights with rose clasps tinted ash, bannerless folk in simple browns and grays. Grand Maester Pycelle intoned prayers, his wavering drone claiming that even mad kings found mercy. When he finished, Rhaegar lifted a torch. He looked first at Jaime, who had taken station opposite the quay, unhelmed and bareheaded as if to invite judgment. Then at Arthur Dayne, white cloak repaired but still spotted with faint brown that no washing could entirely erase. Rhaegar threw the torch. Flames whooshed along the barge, braided canvas rails until mast and sails were molten silhouette, drifting seaward like a dying star. As fire peeled gilded paint from hull scales, he felt Elia squeeze his fingers harder. He remembered her laughter before tragedy shaped their marriage into arrangement. He wished in that moment for excitement to rise toward her, or even anger. But there was only weary affection. In that discovery he saw a path forward. Not the dream of one perfect queen, but 2 women he had already sworn to protect. One in a tower, one at his side, and 1,000 souls who stood here awaiting direction. Duty, not desire, would steer him now. The barge dwindled until flame blurred against night. Bells chimed from the Sept of Baelor, rolling across rooftops and echoing down to the docks. When the toll lapsed, Tywin Lannister stepped from his retinue, cloak shimmering red gold, face carved from cold strategy. He bowed. Prince, he began, too loud for the quiet dockside. Lord Lannister, Rhaegar interrupted. Voice soft yet carrying, all ears angled. If I recall, you last rode to the gates of the city bearing steel in my name but blood in your pockets. I trust you find the walls more welcoming now that justice, not pyromancy, lights the streets. Murmurs flickered. Tywin accepted the sting with measured nod. I serve the realm, and the realm must be steadied. King's Landing needs grain, tools, craftsmen. Casterly Rock can supply these. Yes. And in return? Tywin's pale eyes glinted. A chair on your council to ensure my coin is spent wisely. You will have a voice, Rhaegar said. But not the only one. He motioned for Jon Arryn, who approached in Arryn blue morning cloak. Lord Jon has agreed to serve as hand until the council completes its charge. And until that day, no seat is fixed. Not even mine. Tywin's mouth thinned. A realm led by committees wavers. A realm ruled by fear burns, Rhaegar answered. He gestured to the departing embers on the bay. Tyne head, then may wiser heads prevail. Harrenhal rose from misty lakelands like a giant's broken crown when the delegation arrived 14 days later. Its 5 blackened towers clawed clouds, yet within the walls the wide stone yards bustled with hundreds of pavilions. Banners whipped. Sunspear of Dorne, Direwolf of Stark, Crowned Stag of Baratheon, Lion, Rose, Kraken, Falcon, Trout, Flayed Man. A tapestry of suspicion stitched to flapping silk. The Great Council had answered summons. Prophecy or no, the realm awaited verdict. Rhaegar dismounted first in the outer ward, while trumpeters blared arrival. He wore field plate polished bright but unadorned, rubies removed, cloak of neutral smoke gray. Elia rode behind him upon a white palfrey, Martell guards at flanks. Overhead, a storm of ravens tumbled above fatally cracked stepping towers, as if history itself circled to watch. Inside the hall of 100 hearths, they seemed but small figures beneath melted stone rafters. Torchlight flickered across pocked walls, revealing scars Balerion had carved generations before. High lords seated themselves at trestle tables, in concentric arcs around a central dais. Dais itself bore a new seat, smooth ash wood, back carved into a 7-pointed star rather than dragon wings, symbol of neutrality. Rhaegar ascended steps alone. The hall quieted. Wind howled through broken roof slats. He placed his palms on seat's arms but did not sit. Instead, he turned. We gather in the shadow of ashes. Some ashes still hot, some ancient, he began, voice echoing. Kingdoms rise when men speak together, and fall when men speak only steel. I have fought, I have bled, I have watched kin bleed. Yet prophecy, victory, even blood cannot crown one man unopposed. I submit myself to your judgment. Ben Darmasar. Gasps rustled. Tywin's brow furrowed. Mace Tyrell whispered behind gloved hand. Bronze-skinned Lord Oberyn Martell leaned forward with wry intrigue. But Rhaegar pressed on. Lord Robert Baratheon lives, wounded yet unbroken. He claims right through arms. My lady Lyanna Stark lives beneath my protection. No abduction, no chains. The matter of our union, voluntary or not, awaits her voice. The blood spilled will not wash clean until lords of each realm take witness. He gestured. 2 Kingsguard escorted Lyanna Stark from side passage. She wore simple white wool, hair a tangle of northern brown. Her gray eyes flashed courage as she faced assembly. Wolves of Winterfell rose from their benches, Eddard and Benjen flanking their father, Lord Rickard, gaunt and stony. Murmurs raced. Some exclaimed relief. Others muttered betrayal. Lyanna's voice rang. I left the Riverlands of my own will, in search of truth whispered in Harrenhal's glades. Prince Rhaegar offered me sanctuary when lords would have quashed my freedom. He treated me with honor. No force, no dishonor. And yes, she lifted chin, love grew. A child grows. She pressed palm to slight swell of belly. The hall erupted. Roars of outrage, cheers of vindication, disbelieving laughters collided. Eddard Stark's face whitened, but he did not speak. Robert's foster father, Jon Arryn, banged staff for silence. Still noise stormed. Only when Oberyn Martell vaulted onto his trestle table did quiet return, curiosity subduing. Love is no shield against spears, the Dornish prince declared. But broken oaths breed war quicker than jealousy. What is proposed? A triple marriage. A child of both dragon and wolf, perched on uneasy throne. We need clarity before wine runs out. Rhaegar considered. In this moment he risked fracturing everything. He must step carefully but decisively. The throne, he said, is vacant until the council elects. If the throne chooses Robert, I will submit. If it chooses me, I will marry neither until the realm approves rightful queen. Aelia Martell remains my wife by law. Lyanna Stark my chosen consort only if lawful dissolution occur. Let Septon's way scripture, Master's way precedent. Meanwhile, governance rests with a regency triumvirate. Jon Arryn, Eddard Stark, and Tywin Lannister. 3 men of differing allegiances, bound to unanimous vote, before any decree. Then Rhaegar. The proposal hung like blade above heart. Lords gauged each other. Tywin masked disdain behind studied neutrality. Eddard looked stunned. Arryn's taut shoulders relaxed fraction. Debate blazed for hours, voices colliding like blades. Maester Valen of the Citadel recited ancient precedents. Aegon the Conqueror's wives, Maegor's polygamy, Baelor's annulment. Septon Maribald argued only gods may dissolve marriage. Dornish envoys threatened secession if Aelius' honor was besmirched. Northern thanes shook shields over bastard threat. Through it all, Rhaegar listened, answered sparingly. Allowed the maelstrom to churn until exhaustion dulled blades of argument. Finally, Jon Arryn proposed formal committees. One to examine marital legality, one to assess Robert's recovery, one to mediate reparation for houses ravaged. The hall assented by acclamation. Some eager, some resigned. The council adjourned, thunder rolling outside as dusk swallowed towers. Night within Harrenhal carried ghosts. Rhaegar paced the widow's tower chamber assigned him, tapestries fluttering where walls cracked open to wind. A brazier crackled, sparks drifting like fireflies into gloom. He studied parchments, treaty drafts, supply ledgers, yet mind drifted to sounds below. Laughter from Tyrell tents, guttural iron hymns of northern men sharpening axes, faint sob of some night mourning friend lost. The realm's heart beat, ragged yet fiercely alive. A knock. Barristan entered, torch in hand, and behind him Arthur Dayne. Both removed helmets. Barristan spoke first. We caught Sir Giles Mouton snooping near the treasury wagons. He claims he sought wine, but carried blank parchments bearing familiar seal impressions. Dayne produced a strip of parchment with imprint of Casterly rock. Wax, soft, fresh. It seems Mouton forged Tywin's seal. Rhaegar absorbed. What letters already escaped, he asked. Uncertain, Dayne said. But ravens flew from his tower 2 nights past. Tywin's spy or someone seeking to frame him? Rhaegar weighed. He could not afford open feud. Fragile coalitions might topple. Hold Mouton under guard. Quietly. We expose nothing until facts firm. Barristan nodded. As they turned to leave, Rhaegar stopped Arthur. Tell me true. If this council names me king, will you stand beside my queen, whichever woman that is? Dayne's violet eyes reflected fire glow. My sword stands where your honor directs, so long as you direct honor true. Rhaegar accepted. Then keep that sword near. The next morning rumors struck like plague. Robert Baratheon had died of wound fever at Storm's End. Varys relayed Sparrow news. Maesters confirmed neither arrival nor denial of Raven from Tarth. The hall exploded. Stannis Baratheon rode day and night, arriving parchment-faced, declaring his brother not dead, but perilously ill. Some lords jeered, others smelt manipulation. Stannis demanded right to speak. He addressed assembly in hoarse monotone. If my brother succumbs, his claim passes to me. The stag still stands. He glared at Tyrells, long foes, and then at Rhaegar. But I will not see realm shattered for rumors. Permit me to ride back with Citadel leeches and prayer. Until Robert draws final breath, no vote on crown should pass. Many found unexpected respect in Stannis' austerity. Others saw stalling tactic. Committees recessed, now tasked with dispatching neutral maesters to Storm's End. Meanwhile, Dorne's retinue, heated by gossip of polygamy threat, requested audience. Elia herself came, cheeks flushed with desert determination. In Rhaegar's solar she stood facing him and Lyanna both, united for once, against the swirl outside. "I will not be cast aside," Elia said. "Yet neither do I wish the realm to bleed for my pride. Let the High Septon rule whether marriage consummation excuses annulment." Lyanna glanced at Rhaegar. "And if gods rule brother marriage void, will your blades still defend him?" Elia's gaze softened. "My blades defend the blood in his heart and the children I birthed. If we three cannot forge peace, then no council can." Rhaegar stepped between them, hands on each shoulder. "Then together, we appear before the Septon. I will abide his judgment." Judgment required days. During this, Harrenhal simmered. Fights broke among soldiers in ale tents. Wolf against lion, rose against kraken. Tywin withdrew half-troops to camps beyond God's Eye, citing disease scare. Northern bowmen drilled near broken Godswood, arrowheads igniting tension by proximity. Dane and Barristan doubled patrols. But rumor outstripped vigilance. Mooten flew letters. Greyjoy captains whispered of burning coasts if council offended the drowned god. Highborn bastards played dice on Hood Parish first when council collapsed. Through it all, very spidery presence loomed, silk whispers weaving. One evening he greeted Rhaegar in old smithy converted to war room, his hands perfumed, expression unreadable. "Sweet prince," Varys purred. "I bring certainty amid rumor's fog. Robert recovers. The fever breaks. He marches north by early summer, if not sooner." Rhaegar measured him. "Your certainty bred from which web?" "Whispers from maesters, wives of knights, even the stone walls of Storm's End. They speak if you listen." Varys smiled. "I suggest preparing for Robert's arrival. A symbolic gesture of trust could soften his return." "Suggest?" "Release Jonathan Darry into his brother's custody perhaps. A show of clemency for those who erred but live." Varys bowed. "Mercy is a coin lords seldom spend. When they do, its glitter blinds foes to daggers in your belt." Rhaegar dismissed, but pondered. Mercy to Darry might indeed draw wavering knights. That night, Lyanna found him upon Harrenhal's ruined Godswood Bridge, where willows dangled over black water. Moon shards danced across lake. She wrapped cloak around both. Scent of pine and horse sweat familiar. "All these lords," she whispered, "slicing us like meat on feast day boards. When will they see we bleed the same?" "When fear ceases being coin," Rhaegar answered. He stroked her knuckles. "Our child will face Kender days, or none at all, if we fail." She rested head on his breastplate. "Promise me winter roses in spring." He promised, though not certain spring would come. The High Septon arrived beneath white canopy, flanked by lantern-bearers, chanting litanies. Aged, gout-ridden, he rode litter borne by 8 novices. Within the hall of 100 hearths he heard arguments from maesters, lawyers, septons. Hours into recitation, his fingers twitched as if playing unseen harp of doubt. By dusk, he rendered interim decree. Rhaegar and Elias marriage valid. No dissolution without voluntary release from Elia or canonical cause undisputed. Thus Lyanna's union unsanctioned. Final blessing deferred until Robert's testimony and council's majority. Yet he invoked a rarely used writ. Abiyit sedem, executive penance. Rhaegar must spend 3 nights in silent vigil within Harrenhal Sept, neither eating nor speaking, to seek divine clarity. Elia looked relieved. Dornish lords cheered. Northern contingent seethed. Rhaegar accepted. That night he entered Sept, kneeling among cracked pillars, candles guttering. Kingsguard posted outside barred others. Inside, he clung to prayer unknown to him before. Not for victory, but for wisdom to yield if love risked ruin. Hours bled. Dreams flickered behind open eyes. Dragon shadows soaring over green fields. Child with silver hair chasing wolf pup. Iron throne melting again into river of steel. On the second night, an intruder came. Stone grated. Slim figure glided between pillars, A blade glinted. Rhaegar rose, fatigue slow, but recognized Oswell went, visor up, face haunted. "My prince," Went whispered. "They come for you at dawn. 8 men hired, some in Kingsguard cloaks stolen. They blame you for Warren and Dragons both. Mutin sold them passage. I overheard." Rhaegar stiffened. "Why warn me?" "Because I failed Gerald," Went said, tears shining. "But I will not fail pride of House Wen again." He dropped to knee, proffering key. Through crypt passage, down to lake shore. Dane stands guard. Rhaegar pressed Went's shoulder. "Stand with me rather than hide me." Footsteps echoed outside. Armor clanking. Went's eyes flared. "Too late to pick stance. Go. Redeem me by living." Rhaegar forced himself toward grate. A heavy bolt slid aside. He slipped into narrow spiral. Behind him the sept doors burst. Shouts ringing. Steel on marble. He heard Went cry, "For the king," followed by clash, grunt, silence. Darkness swallowed. He emerged in moonlit tunnel exiting to lake-lapping mossy quay. Arthur Dane waited astride dapple stallion, cloak blending night. He tossed reins to Rhaegar. "Ride for the Godswood clearing. Barristan forms shield wall there." They galloped along reed-lined path. Torches bobbed ahead, ambush maybe. Dane veered to intercept. Blades flashed. Rhaegar ducked low, arrow hissed past ear. Dane wheeled. Dawn slicing Arrowman's bowstring, then neck. They cleared trees into Godswood glade where Barristan, Jaime, and a dozen loyalists ringed lanterns. Mud-splattered Kingsguard impostors lay hog-tied nearby. Tywin Lannister strode from shadows as if conjured, red cloak swirling. "Prince," he greeted, tone bland as coinage. "My men captured these assassins before they reached you. Fortunate my spies exceed theirs." Rhaegar dismounted. "Tell spies they might have spared Sir Oswell. He died, buying me breath." He knelt briefly, catching breath. Barristan's gauntlet squeezed his shoulder. Tywin surveyed corpses. They carried letters naming Stark and Tully benefactors. Forged, doubtless. "I suspect Greyjoy gold or sellsword greed." He kicked one over. A white cloak stained crimson fluttered. "Someone wants this council ruined." Rhaegar rose. "Then we will not let them." Morning light dawned red as dried blood over Harrenhal. Rumor of assassination attempt raced beyond ability to censor. Lords demanded justice. Lances rattled. Stannis Baratheon, grim-lipped, offered to hang every sellsword inside walls. Tywin recommended quiet tribunals. Eddard Stark insisted truth regardless of outcome. Rhaegar convened emergency session. In the center of hall lay 7 captured attackers. Chained, bruised. Tywin's interrogators extracted names. Sellswords from Pentos, hired through crudely forged Lannister letters implicating half the realm. It became clear plot, aimed not to kill Rhaegar, but to frame rival houses. Varys spoke. "Chaos is a ladder, and some rungs are greased by bloodless bodies." He eyed lords discreetly. Rhaegar addressed assembly. "We can hang scapegoats, feed outrage, fracture further. Or we expose Puppet Master and bind realm in shared pursuit of justice." He cited letters linking to Pentoshi banker Coharis Valar, rumored to serve Triarchy interest in weakening Westeros for trade advantage. Lords balked at foreign interference. Anger redirected outward, unified them strangely. Committees voted to dispatch joint fleet under Stannis to Pentos to seize banker. Tyrell ships and Lannister gold financed venture. Unprecedented cooperation sparked applause and suspicion alike. Yet tension subsided a notch. That night, Jon Arryn convened triumvirate. Himself, Tywin, Eddard. Rhaegar met with them privately, fireplace projecting shadows across stone. Topics: regency, crown finances, grain shortage, northern levies. Eddard spoke obstacles frankly. Tywin offered loans. Arryn mediated. Slowly plan emerged. Realm would postpone king election 1 year. In interim, the triumvirate would rule. Rhaegar serving as Prince Regent, under their counsel. Robert's claim reserved should he recover. else regency continue with regent chosen by majority. Rhaegar accepted, to many's surprise. These past months, he said, prove dragons can only guard realm by sharing flight. Eddard clasped his forearm, mutual respect replacing earlier frost. Tywin's nod betrayed hint of approval. Spring's first thaw breathed over Westeros as lords departed Harrenhal. A piece of parchment, not steel, unfurled. Some doubted longevity. Others dared hope. Dornish marched south with Elia, who bore herself proud, carrying 2 children. Rhaenys at side, young Aegon in arms. Lyanna rode north with Rhaegar's sworn escort, her belly rounding beneath fur-lined cloak. She kissed Rhaegar farewell beneath Weirwood Hearttree, promising to return for council's closing next year. Our child will be born among snows, she said. Let wolves guard Dragon's Egg. Rhaegar watched columns vanish into dawn haze, feeling heart tug in 2 directions. Duty anchored him to capital, love pulled toward north. But he accepted division. A kingdom, like a family, did not survive by placing all hope on one hearth. He rode south toward King's Landing with Arthur Dayne and small guard. Fields once threatened by armies now sprouted green shoots. Small folk waved cautious welcome. No dragon banners, only neutral gray cloaks of regency. Within city walls, scaffolds climbed charred walls, masons clanging. Smell of fresh-baked bread almost hid wildfire tang. Bells tolled midday. Rhaegar entered Red Keep, not as king, but caretaker. In throne room sunlight spilled through new glass panes, stained blue and gold. The Iron Throne stood unchanged, barbs still thirsty. He approached, laid hand on cold steel seat, then turned away. A carpenter awaited an archway, plain boards ready. Rhaegar nodded. They set to erect dais for regent's seat. Simple oaken chair carved with images of comet and plow entwined. Power by service. Nightfall draped city. Rhaegar climbed Maidenvault Tower to rooftop terrace. Stars wheeled brilliant above. He strummed silver harp, chords drifting across sleeping streets. Each note carried hush, a lullaby for realm adrift. Barristan appeared, silent sentinel. You think peace will last? The knight asked. Peace never lasts, Rhaegar said, fingers pausing on string. But if we keep forging it, link by link, maybe war takes longer to break chain. He resumed playing. Melody of winter roses blooming among desert flowers. For first time in moons he allowed himself to smile. Below, in winding alleys, children chased glowing beetles, their laughter echoing. In Noble's gardens, ravens croaked over budding trees. In far-off Storm's End, Robert Baratheon awoke to dawn and pain, but also to word of truce. And in Winterfell's frosted keep, Lyanna Stark dreamt of silver-haired child with wolf eyes. On Dragonstone, Viserys practiced regal scowl before mirror, while Queen Rhaella guided his posture. Across seas, banker Coheres Valar boarded ship. Unaware Baratheon fleet cut sea lane. Westeros breathed a tentative sigh, unsure if it exhaled terror or hope. And high above Harrenhal's melted towers, a single white raven wheeled, feathers catching first blush of sunlight, harbinger of change, neither good nor ill until men gave it shape. Rhaegar plucked final chord, let it quiver into starlight, and whispered to night, to father lost, to sons unborn, to enemies spared, to friends fallen. We live in ashes and promise. Let promise win.